Hi everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and this is a video overview of this knife. And this knife is the Giant Mouse Biblio Ace. Now, I believe that this is part of a line of knives that are not limited runs. Up until this point, every knife that Giant Mouse has produced has been a collaboration between Jesper Voxnäs and Jan Sansu, and all of them were limited runs. So they were runs of like 500 or 400, I forget. This is not. This knife will be in production. It's essentially an evergreen product. And it's a really good thing because this is certainly the best knife I have seen from Giant Mouse. And it is one of the better knives out there. Interestingly enough, despite the fact that a lot of the Giant Mouse stuff is well over $300, this knife comes in at $180. It runs M390 steel, which is a great steel. And as you can see, it has contoured, sculpted, black G10 on this one, and then there's a variant that has green micarta, which apparently is the new titanium frame lock because green micarta is everywhere. The knife has a deep carry over the top pocket clip. It's not super deep carry. You're going to get about that much sticking out of your pocket. The blade shape is, classic Jan Sansu weird blade shape, but in this knife it really works. There is an index notch on the handle, and then there is a finger choil in front of the handle. And the end result is you get excellent control. You can really choke up on the blade, put it right at the edge. And by the way, this is the way I like to see knife companies do choils. I do not like the Spyderco choil where there's sort of a wall. Let me see if I can show you. So let's compare the choil on this knife. See right there? There is no ability to sharpen that final piece. Even at the factory, they can't get that final piece sharpened because the end of the choil forms sort of like a wall. But here, without that end, you get the ability to sharpen all the way to the end, and you can still choke up. And by the way, I've never had my finger in choils like this. I've never had my finger slide forward. This choil is also something you'd see on like the TAD the Triple Lot Design Dauntless. And in that knife and in this knife and others, I've never had an issue with it. It's a really, really good knife in the hand. There's a little bit of a swell here at the back end, so you kind of get something to hold on to. And the jimping is placed not where it normally is, but right here, which really, really promotes this sort of forward grip. The blade is under 3 inches long, or either at or under 3 inches long, which is really good. And unlike a lot of knives these days, it's a liner lock, and I love liner locks. I much prefer a liner lock to a frame lock. The knife is a little fat, and I'll show you here in a second. Here's a knife compared to a deck of playing cards. It is not that big, given how long the blade is, but it is quite thick. And here's a comparison for thickness purposes between the knife and a AA battery. As you can see, at its peak thickness, it is just as thick as a AA battery. I mean, it's right there. It's super, super thick. I mean, this is a very thick knife for the size. So compared to something like a Spyderco Chaparral, I mean, it's just night and day. Blade stock is thicker, but the handle scales are way thicker. The other thing is this is not a terribly light knife. It does come in over 4 ounces. So for an EDC knife, this is both on the thick and the fat side. But other than those two criticisms, I don't really have any points against this knife. I like it a lot. I like the blade shape. The flipping action is good. I will note that this isn't really a good thing or a bad thing, but this is a really crisp detent, and it has a very strong liner. So pushing the liner out of the way to disengage the lock is relatively difficult. The other thing is this knife reminds me a lot of the Jan Sansu Custom that I owned, in that, again, the detent was super heavy and it was difficult to disengage the lock. Unlike the Custom I had, this one has some texture, so you can actually get your fingers on the flipper tab. And that is an important point. If you have a really crisp detent, you have to consider how to shape and texture the flipping tab, as well as how to shape and texture the landing zone here. So if you had a really, really strong detent, but no texturing, your finger would almost certainly slip off. In fact, that's what happened on my Custom. And the end result was I kept getting calluses right there. When I was trying to open the knife, it would just, the amount of pressure you needed to put on the knife to get it to open was so great that when you landed, it would strike pretty hard. But this knife, it does a good job of balancing a crisp but not overly strong detent with a really good shape to the flipper tab and the landing zone, and really good texturing on the flipper tab and the landing zone. So overall, I really like this knife. It's 180 bucks. It's relatively competitively priced, except for this guy. This guy really sort of throws off the scale. But if you compare it to something like the Spyderco Mini Grip 5551, it's right in the same price point as a similar quality steel, sculpted handles. I mean, it's a really, really good knife. It's something that you should consider if you're looking for an everyday carry knife. I will warn you, as I said before, it's a little fat and heavy. But other than that, it's really good. So look for a review of the Giant Mouse Ace Biblio coming soon.